myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want.
Hey guys, Coach Dan here. I have a degree in exercise and sports science. I am a coach and personal trainer for 10 plus years, and I've been training in the gym for 20 plus years, and today I'm going to take you through my lower body workout. Now, this current lower body workout has had me working around a little issue in the back of my upper leg, potentially an adductor kind of issue. So I've had to vary some things to kind of manage that and, get that back to normal-ish, which it's not quite there yet, but it's on the improve. This phase of training for me is also a fat loss phase. So I'm week 7 into a fat loss phase or a cut, and I started this off post a sneaky little cruise at about 88 kgs, dropped a few of those pretty quickly. As you imagine, that cruise had a fair few buffets in it, so there was some buffet action there. So I was 88, dropped a few of those really quickly, and now we're down to 80.8 with the intention of doing this for 3 more weeks. And yeah, the results are good in that department. The challenges at this stage for me personally, performance in the gym, really tough, so it's hard to get that little bit better. That's been pretty tough, but also just general like irritability and moodiness and stuff I've got to make sure I keep a handle on, because in my head I can't really bear too much at the moment. Any shit from people is pretty hard to bear, and in society sometimes you got to cop some shit. So anyway, let's go through the workout for today. So this workout, up until this little adductor issue I've had hack squat up front. But I re-aggravated that a couple of weeks back when I didn't think this was such a significant issue or injury. And it was not pleasant, and it set me back a couple of weeks. So I'm thinking about going through, and I'll have a play around when I get out there, a heels elevated belt squat. Keeping my torso nice and upright. What happens with it is that when my hip angle flexes, that's when I get a lot of discomfort. So I'm sinking down into a squat, and things like I've tried last week's sissy squats, that had felt pretty good. But yeah, any kind of hip flexion while squatting is not very pleasant, which again, this is what made me believe that, again, it's not as much, I don't think it's a hamstring issue because it doesn't hurt on hamstring curls and the such. So I think it's an adductor. But whatever, it hasn't improved to the point that I can go to a full depth squat and not notice it. So I'm not going to risk it. But I will try today, a short range of motion, feet straight, heels elevated, belt squat, and see how that goes. And then also what I've been doing on this day, hip thrust with the barbell. Geez, that's a nightmare. We don't have a station for that here. Getting it out, getting it set, I just can't be asked. Sorry, girls who like the hip thrust with the barbell. We've got a hip thrust machine, so I'm going to get on that bad boy and see how that goes. The time I've done that before, I was running out of weight on the weight stack, as well as it feeling very uncomfortable putting the pad on me. So we'll see how we go today, but I'll reintroduce that because I cannot be bothered getting that bar out. Seated hamstring curl, that's business as usual. That's had no dramas. Again, just working for performance on something like that. Leg extension. If the belt squat goes okay, that will be business as usual. If the belt squat, I'm not able to put good intensity, I might have to make that leg extension really difficult so that I get some good stimulus into my quads. I haven't done this in a couple of weeks either. Machine adduction, so that may or may not be on the cards. I'm going to get on and play around with that really light and see if that's okay for a 15 to 20 rep range or not. And then leg press calf raise, that's business as usual. We've had no dramas with that. And then a lying leg raise on the GHD. So that I've added some ankle weights to that, so that's pretty cool as well. All right, so that'll be the workout. Still some workarounds, a bit of frustration. I want to do the big fun stuff. The funny thing about it, when I'm doing that big fun stuff, I'm complaining about how hard that is. Now that I can't do it, I'm complaining that I can't do it. So yeah, just a bit of a complainer all around, I suppose. Anyway, let's go and see if we can't work this belt squat out. If we can't belt squat, we might start at the hip thrust machine, but you'll find out in just a moment. All right, I've been having a little play off camera, and looks like we're going to go with a heels elevated belt squat variation. This is going to help us hopefully introduce the squatting motion again. So belt squat, good because it's going to keep me stable. Heels elevated, good because it's going to keep me upright, so there's not hip flexion, which has been the thing that's caused my adductor thingy a bit of drama. I'm squatting down into a position when I kind of, as I start to come down, that kind of flexion at the hip hurts. So nice and upright. A slightly limited range of motion, although not by much, feels pretty good. Very, very controlled on the way down. And I'm basically just going to work through this such that it's pain-free. So heels on the elevation. Clip into the furthest length. That'll keep our range of motion limited. Chest nice and upright. So heels elevated is going to allow for that. Nice and upright, sinking down into that position there. Yeah, feels nice. It's good to be back. So, I'm planning also potentially to not train at such a high intensity of effort just as I reintroduce this. So weight-wise, in times gone by, maybe I've got my log here. I might have had about 4 plates per side for about 15 reps or so. So today I might go 2 plates per side for 10 to 15. Really sound technique. A little bit further away from failure than I'm normally liking, just to reintroduce. And maybe instead of banging out 3 sets like I was with the hack squat 3 weeks back or so, I'll start with 2. But we'll see how we feel after 2 sets. But it's cool that I can do it, so I'm happy with that. All right, let's add a couple of the plates and then see how it's feeling. Okay, belt squats done diddly. Happy with that. So we've got a really sort of upright posture there, and a lot of knee flexion, a lot of making it really quad dominant, and there wasn't really too much adductor issue. So happy days. That'll be one I can introduce until it's back to normal. Range of motion was also pretty good, so happy with that. So what I did there to kind of avoid any issue is, heels elevated on those little platforms, toes really straight. So none of this kind of action there to kind of stretch or open this up. I want to keep that and then just focus on quads, and quads are burning. The weight wasn't impressive for what I've done before, but I felt my quads work pretty hard. 2 sets just to kind of ease my way back into squatting motions. I'll check the recovery over the next couple of days. Hopefully it feels fine. I have no real, sensation or discomfort there now, so we're happy with that. So I'm just, happy to be back squatting. It's really nice. So, okay, and now as a little substitution, instead of the barbell hip thrust, I'm going to go this machine hip thrust. I've always felt this is pretty good. The resistance is probably a little bit, I'm not to say wrong, but it's quite hard in the shortened position at the top, which hip thrusts generally are anyway. So that might be a potential downside, but I've always felt it to be really effective. Last time out using this one here, I had issues with this feeling really uncomfortable. So the weight was getting quite up there, and this felt really uncomfortable, but I could use a mat to do some extra padding, so we'll see how we go. The same cues or similar cues that we were doing for the standard hip thrust apply, and similar elements as the belt squat. We're going to keep feet forward. This essentially comes down like that. Hips come up to meet, finding that crease. Handles in, sink down as low as you can. Up, squeeze the butt. Now another thing I do on here, keep the head directly forward, so we're not doing this as we do it. Now some people, when they do this suggested technique with head directly forward so we don't move our spine, don't feel super comfortable. So in that case, move a bit freely. But in the case that you don't, I would suggest, head directly forward to keep the back still. So it's all coming from the hips. And just doing that just then, no adductor issue, thumbs up. Setup's much easier on this one, so we can not have to get a bar out, blah, 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 blah. So I'm happy with that. Okay, let's build her on up. I think I'm gonna go for a high-ish rep range, maybe 15 to 20, and that will keep the weight lower than if I did say 5 to 10. Let's get it. It's good. Alright, next up we have the seated hamstring curl. So, on this day, this is probably what you would call a quad dominant day, but I get 3 sets of seated hamstring curl just to get that little bit extra volume because I can recover from it fine. And on my other day, if program is normal, I end up doing 5 sets, which is 3 like hip hinging movements at the moment, and then 2 lying hamstring curl, and that accumulates volume. So, well, do I have to do this in this day? Maybe this gets you a little bit. Anyway, I can do it, so I do it, and it just gives me that little bit extra work, so that's good. It feels effective to me, so that's a good thing. So we crank this all the way to the top, get a nice stretch. We're setting essentially the height of the seat up such that this is in the front or in below the knee, and that is just on the back side of the ankle. So if I was too far this way, it would block my knee from flexing. Too far this way, and you probably wouldn't get a very great leverage. So here, locking in, heels down to butt, control stretch, tap the top, heels down to butt. Now what you'll see me do at the end of these sets here as well is not necessarily lean forward, but do some half or partial reps, which will end up being sort of past fatigue. So when I can no longer get the bottom all the way down, or get it all the way down to the bottom, I'll go half reps just to get that little bit close to failure. All right, 3 sets. Let's go. Okay, leg extension, finishing off the quad work. So, leg extension for me has been the primary quad worker most recently, last 2 weeks or so, because I've had an injury. But now that I've incorporated those belt squats from earlier on, now this can come to the accessory movement, which is cool. What it probably means is I'm not sure how performance, because I'm not coming to it fresh, but it's been progressing of recent times, so we carry on. So a couple of things that I do for my leg extension: yoga block here, seat all the way back. That's to increase the stretch. So this will push my foot back this way, stretch out my quad in general overall. This going back opens up my hip, which lengthens the muscle, one of the muscles in your quad that passes the hip, called the rectus femoris. So that's a good thing, and it would appear that this is better suited to training the rectus femoris, whereas the other quad muscles are potentially more suited to the compound movements, leg presses, squats, etc. So leaning all the way back here, opening that hip angle up, extend the knee, control, gentle tap at the bottom, extend the knee. Bada bing, bada boom. Not too much to it. This is a bit of fuckery and probably not necessary, but I do lots of unnecessary things for the potential to make it, you know, minimally better, if at all. So they have these things these days that kind of lock in here. They're called Hustler blocks, I believe is the brand. So they might become more popular with time. I had these before that was a thing, so I just keep using these, and it takes a bit of work. You know, you got to put these here, you got to strap these utility straps on, things like that, but works for me. I'm not too concerned with a little bit of fuck around, so she'll be right. Okay, let's build up our weight and smash it out. All right, GHD leg raise. Now I'm going to use these ankle weights here in a second to kind of weight the movement, as I've gotten to a level that if I don't weight it, I end up doing, 20 to 30 reps, and nothing wrong with that, but I just figure this will be helpful for progression. So be to weight it, keep it in like a 10 to 20 rep range. When I get better at it, maybe I'll have to get more weights, but that's fine with me. So GHD leg raise, advantage of this one, or GHs in general, is they got this curve here, and that'll help stretch my abs out over the curve and then tilt the pelvis up and kind of contract them over the pad. If you do this on the ground, it can be still good, but often it can be just a lot of hip flexion. So what I'll do is I'll line up my lumbar curve with this pad, grab this handle, think about tilting the whole pelvis up, stretch, tilt it all up. So it's not just about raising the legs, which is just hip flexion. It's about bringing the whole pelvis up. When we think about the abs, they kind of attach to the bottom of the sternum, top of the pelvis, and they pull towards one another. So that's how we're going to use them best. Over this pad, stretching out, and I do sit-ups in this pad as well, and then contracting over the pad. Let's get it. That's good. All right, leg press, calf raise to finish. So, one of the downsides to the leg press, calf raise, I suppose, is adding weight. There would be a time where if this was like pin loaded, I'd much prefer that. So you got to add plates, and if I have a fair few plates to add, that takes some time, takes some effort, blah, 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 blah. We're at a stage of the workout where I don't really want to put in too much time or effort, but this otherwise is a really good exercise. We get to unload the body, just work the calves while we sit here, and that's a good thing. Smith machine calf raise or something like that, bar on your back, pretty fatiguing. So this is good in that regard. That's number one. The pin loaded leg press here has basically some obstructions that don't allow a full range of motion unless your feet are all the way out on the edge, which doesn't always feel great. So pros and cons to weigh up when doing this. As far as technique goes for this, couple of things. This should be up at least a couple of notches if you get quite strong at this one, and your foot is low down, it'll kind of wedge and push you out, and that's very scary. That's number one. Number two, when we set up, we want about half the foot on, or at least the ball of the big toe. Now, what can happen during calf raises, if your surface isn't super slippery or your shoes or whatever, they can slide off. And if your ball or the ball of your big toe comes off, you'll end up tippy-toeing it and then potentially not being able to produce as much force and not affecting your calves potentially as much. Maybe it'll be fine, but potentially not. So what we'll do with half the foot on, at least the ball, push up, heels come down and under, raise up, feel that stretch, raise up. So that itself, very, very good, effective exercise, but now I've got to get some weights on there up to 100 per side. So that's a bit of a pain in the ass, but otherwise it's effective. I do belt squat one on another day alongside my stiff-legged deadlift on that belt squat machine. So yeah, there's pros and cons, but ultimately it's good for the calves. Just takes a bit of time at a time where you don't have too much juice or energy left, but these are the things we do. All right, let's do it. Alright, that's a wrap on the workout, guys. Some positive things to come from that workout, that I can now do that belt squat variation with pretty particular form, but nonetheless, heels elevated, stability by the belt squat. I could pretty much go to full range of motion, so it's good that my injury's hanging in there. Doing squats without that setup, without that heel elevation and all that kind of stuff, is still noticeable as I get to a deep squat. I can kind of notice it. With that heel elevation and that setup, didn't notice it at all. Sort of feels a little bit fatigued now, but not injurious like it did when I heard it and then re-heard it. So happy with that. Everything else. So that is something I wanted to mention, is that I mentioned in the introduction that I might do the machine adduction. I skipped that because I wanted to make sure the recovery from the belt squat was okay. So for example, it's like you're doing an experiment and you don't want too many variables, because if I do the belt squat and the machine adduction, wake up tomorrow fucked up, then I don't know which one it potentially came from, because they're two new things that I've added. I go belt squat this week if the recovery's cool, which fingers crossed it will be, and it feels great now. Maybe I can do that and reintroduce the machine adduction. If it's fucked after that, it would mean no machine adduction for the time being, but I'm quite stoked with that. I'll never complain about doing those movements again. They're the big movements that I've been missing, like the big stiff-legged deadlift on the belt squat, the hack squat. Normally I would complain about because they're so tiring, so I haven't done them in 2 weeks and I'm missing them. So it's good that I can do a variation like that, get somewhat of that motion, even though I have to have a particular technique, but that's cool, at least I can do it. And happy days. 3 weeks remaining on this cut, so we carry on. We got, still hitting the same calories at the moment because the weight is trended down, still hitting the same steps. That's the goal, 10 to 12,000 for the time being. And big focus this week, sleep. Now, I didn't do so well last night, got home, and then my little daughter was still awake not when I got home, but past even my bedtime, which is not usual for her, but she was all hyped up. So that was not the best start as far as sleep goes this week, but yeah, we keep working on that. We're trying to get into bed early, so our early wake-up time, 4 steps, is still good. When I get a good night's sleep, it seems that, progress is smoother. When I get a good night's sleep, I get this, it would appear that, without that sleep, it just happened Friday last week. It was very, very apparent that I've been doing everything similar, had a great sleep Friday into Saturday morning, because had a sleep in, people were out early, so I couldn't go out early, and a couple of kgs, so you just assume that there's water retention going on, stress and stuff like that. So yeah, sleep, number one. Nah, maybe not number one, but sleep. We're going to treat that as high priority. All right, I'll stop shit talking. As always, guys, if you're liking the content, please hit the little subscribe, very appreciated. If you want to watch another video, hit the big boy up here. And as always, it's about progress over perfection. Coach Dan, signing off.